Hey everyone, and welcome back to Forwardcasting. Today we're going to be taking a look at a book that's, well, I mean, it's kind of a classic in the personal development world,
Mm.
The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's been a bestseller for like decades. I think it's safe to say that it's probably helped millions of people be more, well, effective. And I think its staying power really shows how much we crave effectiveness in our lives.
Absolutely. I think the book's wisdom, it just transcends time. These principles are as relevant today as they were when Stephen Covey first wrote them, back in the 80s.
Yeah, for sure. So, okay, for anyone who hasn't read 7 Habits, it really focuses on this idea of character ethic over personality ethic. Basically, it's saying that lasting effectiveness, it doesn't come from like flashy techniques or anything. It comes from really aligning your actions with your core principles.
Yeah, it's like building a foundation from the inside out. It's not just about trying to hack your way to success with quick fixes or anything.
Right, it's about becoming a certain kind of person, not just learning a bunch of tricks. So let's jump right in. The book, it starts by emphasizing just how powerful habits are. Just how much they shape our lives. I mean, it's kind of crazy when you actually stop and think about it, like how much of our day we spend basically on autopilot.
Oh, totally. Covey describes habits as like this invisible force that's constantly influencing our behavior. And, until we really become aware of that force, we're kind of at its mercy.
So we're not just talking about like biting your nails or whatever. We're
Mm.
talking about deep-seated patterns, the kind that affect how we work, how we interact with people, how we see the world even.
Exactly. And one of the biggest distinctions the book makes, one of the first things it really talks about is the difference between what Covey calls character ethic and personality ethic.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about that. I think for people who haven't read the book, it sounds kind of abstract.
It's actually pretty simple. Imagine two people who want to get better at public speaking, right?
Okay, yeah.
One person, they focus on outward techniques. Things like, voice modulation and body language, how to use PowerPoint effectively, that sort of thing. That's personality ethic. It's all about projecting a certain image.
Got it. So what about the other person? What are they doing?
Well, they're focusing on cultivating inner qualities, things like confidence and authenticity, a genuine desire to connect with their audience. They really believe that true speaking power comes from within. That's character ethic, working on your inner self first.
Ah, okay. So it's about being the kind of person who can just naturally inspire others, not just learning the moves.
Exactly. And that's why Covey argues that character ethic is the foundation for lasting effectiveness. It's about who you are.
That makes sense. And this is where things get really interesting. The book talks about this thing called a paradigm shift.
Oh, yeah.
It sounds super complicated, but it's actually pretty mind-blowing once you wrap your head around it.
Right? A paradigm shift. It's a fundamental change in how you see the world. It's like suddenly realizing that the earth revolves around the sun, not the other way around. It completely reframes your perspective.
And Covey, he has this amazing story in the book about a paradigm shift that he experienced on a subway.
Oh, yes. The noisy kids, right.
Yes, he's on the subway, totally annoyed by these kids who are just like running around making a racket. He's about to say something to the father when the father looked at him and is like, "We just came from the hospital where their mother died. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to handle them right now."
And in that instant, Covey's whole perspective shifts, you know, from annoyance to empathy. He realizes he was judging this guy, assuming he was a bad parent, when in reality, the man was dealing with something truly awful.
It's such a powerful example of how our paradigms, they shape our reactions to everything. And so often those paradigms are unconscious. We're not even aware that we're seeing things through a particular lens.
And that's why it's so important to examine those paradigms, to question our assumptions. Are our paradigms helping us? Are they serving us or are they limiting our potential?
So true. Okay, so we've laid some groundwork here with this idea of paradigms.
Yeah.
Now let's move into the first habit, be proactive. What does that actually mean? Like in a practical sense?
It's about recognizing that we have the power to choose our response to any situation. We're not just like puppets of our circumstances.
So it's not about being positive all the time
No, not at all.
or pretending bad things don't happen.
No, it's about taking responsibility for our own lives, even when things are tough. The book uses this incredible example of Viktor Frankl, who was imprisoned in a Nazi concentration camp during World War II.
Wow. Yeah. Talk about a challenging situation.
Exactly. But even in that environment, this horrific environment, Frankl realized that he had the power to choose his response. He couldn't control what was happening to him, but he could control his thoughts, his attitude, his inner world. He called it the last of human freedoms.
Wow, that's incredibly inspiring. It shows that even in the darkest of circumstances, we have agency.
And that agency is the key to proactivity. Proactive people, they focus on what they can control, their efforts, their attitude, their choices. Reactive people, on the other hand, let external circumstances dictate their emotions and their actions.
So it's about focusing on your circle of influence, right? The things you can actually do something about, rather than getting bogged down in your circle of concern, which is all the stuff outside your control.
Exactly. Proactive people, they don't just sit around complaining about problems. They take action to solve them. They don't wait for things to happen. They make things happen.
I love that. It's such a good reminder that we're not just powerless victims. We always have choices. So for everyone listening, I want you to think about one area in your life where you tend to be maybe a little bit more reactive. What's one small step you can take, maybe even today, to shift from reaction to proactivity?
Yeah, maybe it's choosing a more positive response to a frustrating situation, or taking the initiative on a project at work, even something small.
Yeah, those are great examples. Okay, so on to habit two. Begin with the end in mind. This one's all about vision, right?
Absolutely. It's about having a clear mental picture of your goals before you even start taking action. Think about building a house. You wouldn't start laying bricks without a blueprint, right?
That would be chaos, and probably not a very good house.
Exactly. Similarly, to live effective lives, we need to define what success means to us. What do we actually want to achieve? What kind of a legacy do we want to leave behind?
So it's not just about setting any old goal, right? It's about aligning those goals with your deepest values and your purpose.
Exactly. The book encourages creating a personal mission statement. It's like a guiding document that outlines your core principles and aspirations.
Like your North Star, to keep you guided.
I like that analogy. It keeps you on course even when you encounter challenges and distractions along the way. And it's a really powerful tool for making sure you're living a life that's truly meaningful to you.
Okay, so I think a lot of people get stuck at this stage, though. It can feel overwhelming to try to define your life's purpose. You know, like where do you even start with that?
Yeah, it's definitely a process. It's not like a one-time event. Start by asking yourself some big questions like, what do you want your life to stand for? What impact do you want to make on the world? What brings you true joy and fulfillment?
And those answers might evolve over time, right? I mean, it's not like it's set in stone.
Life is a journey. Your mission statement can evolve with you as you grow and learn. The key is to have that guiding framework in place, to constantly be checking in with yourself and making sure you're on the right track.
So we've got our mission statement. It's like our blueprint for life. Now let's dive into habit three, which is all about putting those priorities into action. Put first things first.
This is where the rubber meets the road. You can have the most amazing vision, but if you don't prioritize effectively, you'll just get bogged down in the urgent instead of the important. You'll end up reacting to everyone else's demands instead of proactively pursuing your own goals.
So it's not just about managing time then, it's about managing your focus.
It's about dedicating your energy to the things that truly matter, not just the things that are, screaming for your attention at any given moment.
Yeah, this is something I struggle with constantly. There are always so many urgent things demanding my attention.
We all feel that way sometimes. But the book introduces this really helpful framework. It's called the 4 quadrants of time management.
Okay, I've heard of that. Tell me more about that.
So imagine a grid. It has 4 squares. One axis is urgent versus not urgent, and the other axis is important versus not important. So you end up with 4 categories: urgent and important, not urgent but important, urgent but not important, and not urgent and not important.
Okay, yeah.
Now, most people spend the majority of their time in quadrant 1, urgent and important. These are the crises, the deadlines, the things that feel like they can't wait. And of course, we have to deal with those things. But the problem is that if we're constantly in firefighting mode, we never have time for the things that really move the needle in our lives.
Which brings us to quadrant 2. Not urgent, but important. This is where the magic happens, right?
Exactly. These are the things that contribute to our long-term goals, our health, our relationships, our personal growth. Things like exercise, planning, learning new skills, spending quality time with loved ones. These activities, they might not feel urgent in the moment, but they're crucial for a fulfilling and effective life.
But God, they're so easy to put off when there's a million other things on your to-do list.
That's why it's all about being proactive and intentional with your time. Schedule those quadrant 2 activities into your week, just like you would a meeting or an appointment. Make them non-negotiable.
That's a good tip. And the more you focus on quadrant 2, the less time you'll spend in quadrant 1, right? You'll be preventing those crises before they even arise.
Exactly. It's all about being proactive and taking control of your time.
Okay, so we've talked about being proactive, defining our goals, and prioritizing our time. Now let's move on to habit 4, which is think win-win. What does that mean in a practical sense?
It's about shifting your mindset from competition to collaboration. Instead of assuming that someone has to lose for you to win, you start looking for solutions that benefit everyone involved.
Okay, so moving away from that zero-sum game mentality.
Exactly. The book emphasizes that there's often enough abundance for everyone's needs to be met, even if there's not enough for everyone's greed.
Ooh, I like that. And it's not just about business deals or anything, right? It applies to all sorts of relations.
Whether you're interacting with family, friends, colleagues, or even strangers, the win-win principle can transform your relationships and create a more harmonious environment.
Okay, can you give like a specific example of how this might play out in real life?
Sure, imagine you're negotiating a project deadline with a colleague. Instead of, digging in your heels and demanding your preferred date, you take the time to understand their constraints and priorities. Together, you brainstorm a solution that meets both of your needs, perhaps by adjusting the scope of the project or allocating resources differently.
So it's about finding creative solutions that benefit everyone involved rather than just trying to, get your way all the time.
Exactly. And in the process, you build stronger relationships and a more collaborative work environment.
Okay, I think that's a great place to pause for now. We've covered a lot of ground already. We'll be back soon with part 2, where we'll unpack the remaining habits and explore how they can help you create a truly effective and fulfilling life.
Welcome back, everyone.
It's great to be back. Last time we left off talking about habit 4, think win-win. That idea about collaboration and finding solutions that benefit everyone.
Yeah, it's such a powerful shift in thinking, to move away from that me versus you mentality.
Totally. And it sets the stage perfectly for habit 5, which is seek first to understand, then to be understood. This one's all about communicate.
It is, but it's not just about talking. It's about really listening, like deeply understanding the other person's perspective before you even try to make them understand yours.
Yeah, it sounds simple, but I think it's one of the hardest habits to actually master.
It definitely takes practice. We're so often caught up in our own heads, our own thoughts and agendas, that we kind of forget to truly tune in to what the other person is saying, both verbally and non-verbally.
Right. Covey uses this analogy, this brilliant analogy of an emotional bank account.
Imagine that every relationship has its own emotional bank account. When you make deposits into that account, through acts of kindness, empathy, keeping promises, really listening, you build trust and goodwill.
And withdrawals happen when we, break those promises, or we're disrespectful, or we fail to consider the other person's feelings.
Exactly. And just like with a financial bank account, if you keep making withdrawals without enough deposits, you end up overdrawn. The relationship suffers, communication breaks down, it becomes difficult to really connect.
So how can we be more intentional about making deposits into those emotional bank accounts, with the people we care about?
I think it starts with awareness. Just pay attention to how you're interacting with others. Are you really listening? Are you showing empathy? Are you keeping your promises? Are you making an effort to understand their perspective? These are all key deposits.
And on the flip side, what are some common withdrawals we should try to be mindful of?
Breaking promises is a big one. So is being disrespectful, judgmental, or just dismissing the other person's feelings. Gossip is another major withdrawal. It erodes trust, creates negativity.
So it's not just about avoiding major blow-ups. It's about paying attention to those smaller things, the little things that build or diminish trust over time.
Think of it as compound interest. Small, consistent deposits, over time, they create this strong foundation of goodwill. And that foundation, that can make all the difference when challenges inevitably arise.
So we've talked about understanding others. But then, how do we make ourselves understood?
Well, that's the second part of the habit. Once you've truly listened to the other person and demonstrated that you understand their perspective, you're in a much better position to communicate your own thoughts and feelings.
It's like you've earned the right to be heard, in a way.
Exactly. And because you've built that foundation of trust and understanding, the other person is much more likely to be receptive to what you have to say.
Okay, that makes sense. Moving on to habit 6, which is all about, teamwork and collaboration.
Synergize.
Synergy. It's
Yeah.
this idea that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. It's about recognizing that different perspectives, different skills, different ways of thinking, they can actually be a huge asset when they're harnessed effectively.
Covey has this great example about David Lilienthal and the Atomic Energy Commission. So Lilienthal, he was appointed to head the Atomic Energy Commission after World War II. He brought together this team of like the most brilliant minds in the country. But instead of just putting them to work on these really complex technical challenges right away, he had them spend weeks just getting to know each other.
It seems kind of counterintuitive, but it makes sense when you think about it.
Right. Lilienthal, he understood that building trust and mutual respect was so essential for true collaboration. He knew that their diverse perspectives, if they could harness them effectively, could lead to breakthrough solutions.
And did it work?
Oh, it absolutely did. That team, they achieved some incredible things, thanks in part to the synergistic environment that Lilienthal fostered.
That's so cool. It shows the power of, really embracing differences and creating a culture of collaboration.
And the principles of synergy, they can be applied to any team, any organization, any relationship, really. It's about creating a space where people feel safe to share their ideas, to challenge each other, and to work together towards a shared goal.
So how can we foster more synergy in our own lives?
It starts with valuing those differences. Seek out diverse perspectives. Be curious about other people's experiences. And, be willing to challenge your own assumptions.
And it's about creating that safe space for open communication.
Encourage respectful dialogue, listen actively, and really focus on finding those solutions that benefit everyone. Remember, synergy isn't about compromise. It's about creating something new and better together.
No. Which brings us to, finally, our final habit, sharpen the saw. And this one I think ties everything together, doesn't it?
It really does. It's the habit of self-renewal, that idea of taking care of your most valuable asset, which is yourself. Recognizing that you can't be effective in the long run if you're running on empty.
It's so true. I love that Covey uses the analogy of the lumberjack. The one who's trying to cut down a tree with a dull saw.
Oh, yeah, classic.
He's hacking away, totally frustrated, getting exhausted, but the tree's not budging. Finally, someone suggests, hey, why don't you take a break and sharpen the saw? And of course, once he does that, the work becomes so much easier and more effective.
It's a great metaphor, isn't it, for life in general?
Totally. I mean, we can get so caught up, in all the craziness of our day-to-day that we forget to take care of ourselves. We just keep pushing and pushing, but eventually you burn out or you become ineffective.
Exactly. Sharpen the saw is a great reminder that we need to, we really need to prioritize our own well-being. You have to replenish your energy so that you can keep showing up as your best self.
So let's get practical. What are some ways, some specific things that we can do to sharpen the saw in each of those 4 dimensions?
Okay, well, in the physical dimension, it's all about taking care of your body. That means getting enough sleep, eating good food, exercising regularly, and managing stress levels.
Yeah, the basics, but important.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm definitely more effective when I'm taking care of myself.
For sure. And then mentally, it's about keeping your mind sharp and engaged. So read books, learn new things, take courses, challenge yourself. Just stay curious.
And how about spiritually? What does that look like?
This is about connecting with something bigger than yourself, however you define that. Maybe it's spending time in nature, maybe meditation, religious practice, or even just quiet reflection. It's about nourishing your soul and finding that sense of meaning, finding your purpose.
And then finally, the social emotional dimension.
This one's all about your relationships. It's about building those strong connections with others and, contributing to your community. So spend time with your loved ones, maybe volunteer your time, engage in activities that bring you joy and a sense of connection.
It's so true. I mean, it's amazing how interconnected all these dimensions are. When you neglect one, it really does affect all the others.
Absolutely. It's totally holistic, this approach to well-being. And when you're taking care of yourself in all these areas, you just naturally become more effective in everything you do.
You have more energy, more focus, you're more resilient.
Right. And you're better able to show up for other people, in a more authentic, more meaningful way.
Thinking back on, all 7 habits, it strikes me how much they really build on each other.
They do. They're like a spiral staircase. Almost, each habit sort of leads to a higher level of effectiveness and fulfillment.
I love that. So it starts with that foundation. of proactivity, of really taking ownership of your life.
And then from there, you define your mission, your goals. You figure out how to prioritize your time. You focus on building those win-win relationships.
And you learn to really listen, really understand other people. Then you synergize with them and constantly renew yourself.
It's a great framework for growth and, really for transformation.
I think one of the biggest takeaways, for me at least, is that effectiveness isn't some quick fix or, some magic formula.
Yeah, for sure.
It's about developing these habits, these ingrained patterns of thought and behavior that really, I don't know, they stick.
It's about making choices, consistently making choices that align with your values and goals.
And it's a journey. It's about recognizing that personal growth is an ongoing journey, not a destination.
Well said.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of the 7 habits. It's been great having you.
The pleasure was all mine, truly. Always love diving into these principles.
And to all our listeners, thank you for tuning in to Forwardcasting. We hope you found this episode insightful and maybe even a little inspiring. And if you did, please do us a favor and subscribe and share it with your friends, whether you're listening on YouTube or Spotify. We'll be back soon with another episode. Until then, keep casting forward.